In at number 5 we have Sea Devil. Back on February 1st, 2013, researchers using scanning equipment in Lake Labinga announced that they had discovered what they claimed were the skeletal remains of an ancient sea serpent, described locally as the Devil. A dozen divers braved legends of monsters in the coldest winter temperature to venture into the lake in order to get into the Guinness World Book of Records. Using an underwater scanner, they discovered a jaw and skeletal remains that could in fact belong to the infamous Devil. That was first reported by locals in the 19th century. Now, the divers didn't meet the creature itself, but managed to film the bottom of the lake and along the way discovering evidence of the jaws and skeleton using an underwater scanner. A geologist wrote of the Devil stating, "There have been all sorts of hypotheses about what kind of creature it could be, a giant pike, a relic reptile or an amphibian. We didn't manage to prove or to disprove these versions. We managed to find the jaws and skeleton of some animal. However, there were sadly no pictures released of these findings, posing a lot of questions as to whether they discovered anything at all. So whether the Sea Devil exists is up to you." Probs doesn't, does it? Pics or it didn't happen.
Number 4. Natron Lake. This next one is a bit of a trap. Literally. Not only is this lake forbidden at all times to swim and drink in, even the air around it makes it for harsh camping. Lake Natron, located in Tanzania, East Africa, is a strange body of water as it's one of the most toxic and dangerous lakes in the world. This stunning, shallow, saline lake is a deadly one, with disturbingly high levels of natron, which is sodium carbonate decahydrate. Eek. Nasty stuff. And due to the millions of years of basically brining and preserving everything it touches, this has allowed the lake to concentrate into a caustic, toxic nightmare. Yo. Basically, it just pickles everything and turns it into stone. Okay, I see now. A real-life Medusa lake. I would just be mid-air in a cannonball, frozen in time forever. Cannonball! Terrifying. Takes more than just a look to turn to stone, however. The water and the air mixed together is what gives this lake the preserving feature. You wouldn't just come out a rock, you would have to kind of just sit there for a while in the same spot while the compound breaks you down. Yeesh. The beautiful stills of all of the creatures frozen in time, bound by art, are alluring and elegant, yet sinister in its effect. It's a gentle reminder to all around that although it looks inhabited and full of thriving fauna, the gargoyle statues left behind is a message in itself. Mother Earth has a weird way of making some of the most beautiful and enticing things the most deadly, I'd say. 3. Neos Lake. Much like Lake Natron, this next lake is also known for its deadly liquid and off-limits swimming. Lake Neos is located in Cameroon, West Africa, and is the inspiration for films like Volcano with Pierce Brosnan. Its location is a terrifying surprise in itself, right on top of an active crater. Perfect. Lake Neos sits in a crater on the edge of an active volcano in the Oku volcanic field, and not only is this lake forbidden due to its chemicals above the water, pools of magma lie only 80 kilometers below its surface. Imagine snorkeling looking down at that hot magma. We gotta go! Eventually, the gas becomes too concentrated and huge bubbles of CO2 burst from the lake, and being above all that magma, it releases toxic levels of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that's exactly what happened. In 1986, the lake recorded an explosion that claimed the lives of countless amounts of people and animals in the surrounding area. A silent, invisible killer bubbled off the surface and down the hills surrounding the lake, taking the lives of nearly everything in its path. Sadly, scientists would only discover its cause months later. The cloud of carbon dioxide rose out of the lake and flooded into the valley below at more than 100 kilometers per hour. The suffocating gas killed nearly 1,800 people and approximately 3,500 in livestock and countless amount of species in birds and insects. P.U. Silent but deadly. You know when insects can't dodge it that it's really bad. Although to this day there's no official evidence of anything living and or swimming in the lake, the locals claim to see things moving on its still surface from time to time, which in itself is a horrifying claim. So not only could there be creatures living in this toxic sludge made out of who knows what, but that the rustling of the surface water could mean yet another deadly explosion. Active or not active? You tell me. Number 2. Boiling Lake. Located in the islands of the Dominica and considered one of the world's heritage sites, Boiling Lake in Morne-Trois Pitons National Park is a hot topic to say the least. A subtle 4-mile hike through the jungles of man-made paths sits this earthly anomaly. After a strenuous hike through thick flora sits this mysterious bowl of water known solely as the Boiling Lake. The second largest boiling lake in the world, this is not to be confused with a hot spring, as its waters are sweltering and in the middle of the lake actually boiling. It's basically a giant breathing vent under the Earth's crust and releases hot vapors through its fumarole and heats the body of water to literally a boiling point. Travelers are reminded not to be enticed by the refreshing blue-gray water after the difficult hike up, as jumping in it to cool off would result in a chef's feature soup. Behind hot soup! I said behind! The name, from its, well, boiling nature, is one of the hottest natural lakes in the world, with a temperature topping 90 degrees Celsius around the outside alone, and in the middle, who knows how hot. Although it's impossible to slip into, it's too hot to handle and is unfortunately restricted all year round. The people of Dominica once believed, due to the heat of the water, that this could be the opening of hell itself, or the mouth of the underworld. Claims that the albaca, a shape-shifting devilish creature that makes deals on behalf of the devil, has been known to congregate in areas of high spiritual meaning like this one. And due to the haze and fog and humidity, the visuals can become distorted, especially at night. Is that Dad or is that a mist monster? I don't know. Although no tourists have actually claimed to see any creatures stirring around or swimming beneath the humid hot pool, it makes a great birthplace for story and myth, and holds a high significance among the locals. No hot tea monster, huh? Okay. No soup monster either? Yeah? Okay, just wondering. We tried. And coming in at number 1, Groom Lake. This one's an obvious one, and I left it for number 1 as I feel it's the most interesting of lakes, and I personally think it's home to a number of mysterious creatures. Aliens. Groom Lake, located in Nevada, is home to, well, no lake. A salt flat now, as it's been dry for quite a while, considered to be one of the most secure and off-limits military bases in the world. You can't even visit here to see it yourself. Travelers can come close to its perimeter, however, but with the armed guards and warning signs that states very clearly the punishment if breached, needless to say, is very off-limits. Built somewhere around 1955, there is much mystery and lore surrounding this famous base. The home of the famous Storm Area 51 movement in 2019, this place is claimed to be home to a couple different creatures. It's believed that the famous crash site of 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico resulted in material and bodies recovered and shipped during the middle of the night to Groom Lake. Although the government and US military claim that this base is strictly a military research base, it is commonly related to UFO and aliens due to the high strangeness heard and seen there. The base is completely off-grid and is the apparent site to test planes and underdeveloped technology. Some claim that they have seen orbs, UFO motherships, alien hybrids working on planes alongside humans, and a number of paranormal activities. Can you pass me a Phillips, please? No, thank you. It is said to hold different races of aliens such as the Greys, the Reptilians, and the Tall Whites. It is subject to a variety of spy planes developed over the years and is said to be the birthplace of the future of technology. Not allowed to go there, see it, or even talk about it. Yeah, there's definitely aliens there. At least it seems like everyone's getting along, that's good. Famous claims by people like Bob Lazar, a scientist and propulsions expert, caught media attention in the early 90s, claiming that he had worked there and worked on UFO vehicles himself, trying to reverse its technology. Numerous pilots and scientists have also claimed to have worked alongside aliens for years, and apparently have the key cards, clearance, and proof to show for it. Its reputation has grown over the years, revered and feared, and remains forbidden.
Coming in at number 5, we have Lake Natron. Located in Tanzania, this lake can be considered the most serene lake in Africa by the looks of it, but swimming in it is a different story. If it's not the red color that deters you from swimming in this lake, maybe you'll reconsider when you learn that the water burns the eyes and skin of any creature that it touches. This is because the lake is surrounded by volcanic geology, meaning the lake's waters are extremely alkaline, with a pH level of 10.5. The water's alkalinity comes from the sodium carbonate and other minerals that flow into the lake from the surrounding hills. Lake Natron is quite shallow, less than 3 meters deep, and varies in width depending on its water level. These waters are so deadly that no creature has been able to adapt and survive to its unique composition. The water of Lake Natron is very high in cyanobacteria. This is an algae that releases a chemical which in turn damages the cells, nervous system, and livers of most of the organisms that have consumed it. Animals naturally make their way to Lake Natron for food, water, and to find a place to live. The problem is the incredibly high alkalinity and absurd temperatures in the lake. The impact on wildlife is that it appears to turn them to stone. Many of the birds and animals that drink from Lake Natron wind up dead as a result. The animals, birds, and bats that die in the water are calcified and turn into mummified versions of themselves. Lake Natron is one of 2 alkaline lakes in that area of East Africa. The other is Lake Bahi. Both are Terminal lakes that do not drain out to any river or sea. They are fed by hot springs and small rivers. As shallow lakes in a hot climate, their water temperatures can reach as high as 106 degrees Fahrenheit. Coming in at number 4, we have mini Stonehenge. Back in 2007, a team of archaeologists discovered a Stonehenge-like structure at the bottom of Lake Michigan, which is absolutely insane. As most should know, Stonehenge in the UK is one of the most famous prehistoric monuments, but now, thanks to this discovery, it's not the only one of its kind. According to Mark Holley, a professor of underwater archaeology, he discovered a series of stones arranged in a circle 40 feet below the surface of Lake Michigan. One of the stones discovered appears to have carvings that resemble a mastodon, an elephant-like animal that went extinct 10,000 years ago. I quote, "When you see it in the water, you're tempted to say this is absolutely real, but that's what we need the expert to come in and verify." Now, if the formation is authenticated, it wouldn't be totally bizarre considering that other stone circles have been discovered in the area, as well as some petroglyphs, specifically the Sanalik Petroglyphs Historic State Park, a park which contains the largest collection of Native American petroglyphs in Michigan. The carvings were said to be created in the pre-Columbian era and represents aspects of Native American spirituality. Coming in at number 3, a ghost town. Back in 2011, there was a prolonged drought in Texas, which resulted in the remnants of a small town called Bluffton quite literally coming to the surface. Now, the original town site was submerged by Lake Buchanan. When the Buchanan Dam was completed in the 30s, it flooded the original town site. Following the incident, the entire town was moved several miles to the west, forcing residents to abandon ranches and successful pecan trees. However, like I said, in 2011 a severe drought caused lake levels to drop, re-exposing the old town along with its gravestones. Johnny C. Parks died 2 days before his birthday almost a century ago, with his grave being one of many to slip from sight and into the lake. However, now the cracked marble tombstone has re-emerged. Across the state, the drought has revealed a prehistoric skull, ancient tools, fossils, and a small cemetery that appears to contain the graves of freed slaves. Local historians have of course been attracted to the site. I quote, "In an odd way, this drought has provided an opportunity to view and document where appropriate some of these finds and understand what they consist of. Most people in Texas probably didn't realize what was under these lakes. I mean, they'd be the weird ones to guess a town, to be honest." Coming in at number 2, the Disappearances. In September of 2013, 2 cars were discovered at the bottom of Foss Lake near Elk City, Oklahoma. 6 bodies were discovered in 2 rusted out cars that were pulled from the lake. This may actually have solved the dual mysteries of a set of teens who went missing in the 70s, as well as a trio of grown men who went missing in the late 50s and 60s. The 2 cars were spotted by Highway Patrol while testing out a new sonar equipment in Foss Lake on the western edge of the state. Divers were quickly called in and later returned with a crumbling 1969 Camaro and a 1950s Chevrolet from the bottom of the muddy lake. In both cars they discovered bones as well as human skull in the water. The divers went on to uncover 6 bodies, 3 skeletons in each car. Debbie McManaman's grandfather, Alvy Porter, drove a green Chevy like the one discovered. She said, I quote, "I remember that green car. Yes, it's sad. I mean, I can still see his tall, lanky body walking up to the car." The Camaro, on the other hand, matches one driven by 16-year-old Jimmy Allen Williams. The teen went for a drive with friends Thomas Michael Rios and Leah Gail Johnson on November 20th, 1970 before vanishing and disappearing forever. The 2 cars would rest side by side for more than 4 decades until their discovery. Kim Carmichael, a friend of Williams, stated, "I just remember how devastated everybody was. We lived in a little town. Nothing like that ever happened." Now, the discovery was a total accident, with troopers not being prepared for what they were going to find. I quote, "We thought it was just going to be a stolen vehicle, and that's not what it turned out to be, obviously." And finally, coming in at number 1, Tom Sublett. Back in December of 2012, investigators discovered the remains of Tom Sublett, the commissioner of Glynn County, Georgia, at the bottom of a lake. His body was found floating between a dock and a boat at the St. Simmons Boating and Fishing Club at around 6 a.m., which was almost 4 hours after his wife became alarmed that he had not returned home. Now, what is oddly suspicious about the incident is the simple fact that Police Chief Matt Doring refused to say how he died, and no one reported seeing someone Sublett alive in the 7 hours between leaving his fishing club friends and turning up in the lake. In the hours before his body was discovered, there was an incoming tide moving upstream from the dock toward the boating club, so saying that where he was discovered isn't necessarily where an incident took place. Now, an autopsy was done on the body, but no motive was put forward, but Doring did confirm that some items were missing from Tom Sublett. What the police chief refused to comment on was the fact that Sublett's hands were bound together and there was a bullet cavity in his head, something they remained oddly hush-hush about. They also found an empty holster in his car and ammunition, but no weapon was ever discovered. According to the medical examiner, Sublett took his own life, but the question is, how do you shoot yourself when your hands are bound? Something is fishy about the entire thing.
Number 5. Lake Michigan. Okay, so this is not a totally forbidden lake per se, but many of the times out of the year it is. The second largest of the 5 Great Lakes in North America, and the most vicious. This huge body of water sits between Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, and is a bolstering 1,000 feet deep. That's a lot of room for creatures to be just lurking around. Dinosaurs of the Great Lakes have been an inspiration for hundreds of years. The First Nations people of North America, predominantly the Ojibwe, Chippewa, and Huron peoples, were the first to inhabit the surrounding lake, and they have seen and heard some pretty disturbing things over the years. Due to its ferocious currents, the lake is officially off limits multiple times during the year and can result in tickets and fines if caught. With the 4th of July weekend just behind us, we can clearly see how the beach closures and off-limit areas mark the unsafe, fast-flowing water this time of the year. And although this lake is swimmable, the deepest parts of it are certainly not for the weakest of doggy paddlers. Just in 2021 alone, the lake took 53 people's lives, which, sad to say, is a record in itself for the least amount of people lost. And on average, about 100 people drown each year on Lake Michigan. Though the rapids are a danger in itself, the creepy stuff comes from what swims beneath. Stories and myths have been passed down generation to generation, but the consensus of the lore surrounding the Great Lake is of its monsters both under and above the water. Plesiosaurs, sea serpents, or just sturgeon. Sturgeon can grow up to 300 pounds and are a local to the Great Lakes, regularly mistaken for monsters such as Bessie, Lake Erie's lake monster. These fish are often mistaken for spiky dinos. The great sturgeon of Loch Ness in Scotland is the inspiration behind Nessie and the Loch Ness monster herself, or so it seems. And of course, not only under but on top. Along its shores there have been sightings of some pretty weird stuff as well. Bigfoots and human hybrid creatures have been seen and documented here for thousands of years. Yikes. Yetis and dinosaurs, huh? Yeah, that's safe to say. Not only should you avoid the water and swimming completely, just avoid the beach as well, huh?
Coming in at number 4, we have the Ganges River. The Ganges River is a great river of the plains of the northern Indian subcontinent. The river used to be sacred to Hindus and seen as the mother goddess Ganga herself, therefore giving the river a religious devotion for millions of people across the world. Yet due to industrialization and capitalism, the river is now the most polluted river on Earth. Oftentimes, industrialization will occur so quickly that the regulations on that pollution will not catch up. As a result, bodies of water will often get polluted. This is what happened in this specific river, as people had put into the water trash, plastic, and pretty much everything else they didn't want to deal with. The result is the now toxic Ganges River. The water of this river has turned into a sludge of humans and industrial waste. Not to mention the 40,000 cremated bodies that are dumped in the river every year. Additionally, every day around 3 million liters of sewage is emptied into the Ganges, and only about half of that has undergone any kind of treatment. There's more than just sewage entering this river. Waste from tanneries, chemical plants, textile mills, slaughterhouses, and even hospitals is dumped, untreated, into it. Although it is officially sacred, the Ganges is also a vital working river. Its numerous watersheds in the mountains across the Deccan Plateau and its vast delta serve 400 million people, a third of India's population, as a source of drinking water for humans and animals, essential for crop irrigation, travel, and fishing. Pollution, carbon emissions, and many other foibles will result, and it's because of this industrialization that the Ganges River in India has become one of the most dangerous areas in which to swim. Coming in at number 3, we have Eagle's Nest Sinkhole. Known as the Mount Everest of cave diving, the Eagle's Nest Sinkhole is one of the most dangerous diving spots on Earth, and just like Everest, this natural wonder has killed those attempting to witness its beauty. This diving spot can be found in Florida, USA. On its surface, the body of water looks like an ordinary pond, but beneath the surface, divers can explore a sinkhole that descends into a system of wide underwater passages that reach depths of up to 90 meters. The spot is so dangerous that there is a warning sign before entering the site saying "Stop, prevent your death, there's nothing in this cave worth dying for," with an image of the Grim Reaper on it. This cave system is dangerous because it's very easy to become lost, and there is no safe section where you can get your bearings. This cave is infamous and unforgiving. Even among experts, local knowledge and first-hand experience is mandatory. In places, the cave system inside Eagle's Nest is extremely tight. It's so narrow that divers must squeeze and squirm through claustrophobic openings. Sometimes it's a struggle to make it through with their gear, while in other areas the cave system opens into giant caverns. They're named with grandiose descriptions like ballrooms and super rooms and the pits. The system is beautiful, but is a dangerous beauty. This site has drawn many untrained and unqualified explorers to tragic deaths. Because of the total darkness and extreme depths combined with the complicated cave network to create a dangerous diving experience for those who are not prepared. In at number 2 we have Blue Lagoon. Don't get it confused with the beautiful and healing hot spring in Iceland. The Blue Lagoon that we are talking about is located in the UK. The lagoon can be found in Buxton and is known for its stunning colour and great number of visitors every year. This body of water is one of the most visited tourist attractions in the Park District. While this visually stunning lake with its lush blue waters looks like a tropical paradise, it's not quite the lavish pool you'd expect. The enticing and exotic colouring is caused by the caustic chemicals used in the stones during the now defunct quarrying process. The Blue Lagoon in England has now collected so many minerals from nearby mining that the calcium oxide buildup has led to an extremely high pH level in the water below. The water has such a drastically high pH level that the natural pool has an alkalinity comparable to that of ammonia or bleach. Thus, you might want to avoid swimming in this lake because if you do, just a few minutes in the deceptively beautiful waters can cause a whole host of health issues. A number of clearly posted signs leading up to the pool warn visitors that the water is toxic enough to cause skin and eye irritations, stomach problems, and fungal infections. The lagoon was once a gorgeous aqua color, which is what led to so many swimmers thinking it was harmless, but has since been dyed black to make swimmers think twice before diving into its toxic waters. In at number 1 we have Lake Kivu. Lake Kivu can be found in Rwanda, Africa. Posing as one of the strangest bodies of water, this lake has an unusual set of properties. Though Kivu doesn't behave like most deep lakes, this is because the lake is considered an exploding lake, which means that the lake could erupt. This is due to the unstable ground afforded to it by a nearby volcano. The scenic beauty of Lake Kivu with its green hills and crystal clear water is highly deceptive, as deep within these waters there is an enormous quantity of potentially explosive gases. Kivu is one of the string of lakes lining the eastern African Rift Valley, where the African continent is being slowly pulled apart by tectonic forces. The resulting stresses thin the Earth's crust and trigger volcanic activity, creating hot springs below Kivu that feed carbon dioxide and methane into the lake's bottom layers. Kivu is a fairly deep lake and can get around 1,500 feet at its deepest point. Due to the great depth of this lake, it creates so much pressure that these gases remain dissolved. Thousands of years of volcanic activity surrounding the lake has caused a massive accumulation of methane and carbon dioxide to dissolve in the depths of Kivu, enough to prove potential destruction in the rare event they were released. If triggered, a limnic eruption would cause a huge explosion of gas from deep waters to the surface, resulting in large waves and a poisonous gas cloud that would put the lives of millions at risk. This hasn't been a concern until recently in 2021, where a nearby active volcano became active and destroyed hundreds of homes. This volcano created a large earthquake that shocked the area, leaving an explosive lake ready to explode. Both Rwanda and Democratic Republic of the Congo people live in fear of the lake's harmful potential, especially since there have been stories of swimmers disappearing into the depths of the lake have been spread. If you ended up actually swimming in the lake, the first thing you would notice is how warm the water is. Secondly, the methane mixed with the surrounding air could ignite, setting the lake on fire, but at that point you probably already would have been made unconscious from the great amount of carbon dioxide. With the toxic gas, fragile systems, and potential instability, this makes Lake Kivu one of the most terrifying lakes on planet Earth.